Portage County Board of Supervisors meeting, recorded September 17, 2019.
It's 5 o'clock. We'll call the Portage County Board of Supervisors to order.
25th.
With that, we'll start with roll call. If you're here, press confirm. Yes, and confirm.
Abstain.
He was in the hospital.
I got it.
Circulation issue, diabetes.
24 present, 1 excused.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation by Supervisor Matt Chakowski.
Dear Lord, as we embark on our journey this evening, let us remember it's not about my people or their people. It's about all the people of Portage County. Please also watch over those who protect and serve, along with my fellow farmers who are entering their busy harvest season. Amen.
Review and approval of August 20, 2019 County Board meeting minutes. Motion by Supervisor O'Brien, seconded by Supervisor Gussel. Any discussion, corrections, or changes? All those in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Correspondence.
For those of you attending the WCA conference next week, you should have received an attendee information packet. Please contact me if you have any questions prior to attending.
One other thing under correspondence, I'm going to take a little liberty here. I had a discussion with Mrs. Splinter last night. Mr. Splinter's not here. He's excused tonight. He is out on medical leave. I asked if I could share with you, and she said yes, by all means. For a lot of you that don't know, Mr. Splinter had quadruple heart bypass. After that, his medications, he had a reaction, and it caused him to lose his leg below the knee on his right leg. So he's not going to be in any of the other committees for a few weeks, but she said he looks forward to getting back here with us and being part of it. And I asked her if I could share that. I said we're kind of a big family. I'm sure people don't know, and with today's rules and stuff, and she said she was fine with that. So I wanted to pass that on to you, and I told them our thoughts and prayers are with him to speedy recovery and get well. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the update.
Public comments. Members of the public who wish to address the county board on specific agenda items must register their request at this time, with such comments subject to reasonable control of the county board chair set forth in Robert's Rules of Order. Anybody from the public? Nobody from the public. Appointments, executives' appointments. Appointment of Kenneth Glazer to Local Emergency Planning Committee as an additional local environmental representative for the balance of a 4-year term expiring April 20, 2020. Motion by Supervisor Dubek, seconded by Supervisors Droik. And take a voice vote on that. Any discussion? All those in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I'm going to switch things around and allow Cindy, Director of Aging and Disability Resource Center, to do her 2018 report first, as she has a timing conflict. So we're going to let Cindy go first.
Okay, just let me make sure that I can actually get it to change. All right. There we go. I never quite trust technology. Good evening, everybody. So in your packet, you will have our 2018 annual report, and I'm just going to do a real quick presentation about the Aging and Disability Resource Center and all of the wonderful things that we do in the community. So we are what's called a fully integrated Aging and Disability Resource Center, which means that we are both a Department on Aging and an Aging and Disability Resource Center. This actually works to our advantage because it helps us leverage some additional dollars that help out the department. So we are funded by several different categories. So federal and state, Older Americans Act, Medicaid match, also referred to as federal financial participation or FFP. Department of Health Services, Division of Public Health, Bureau of Aging and Disability Resources, and they provide us with our GPR. We have Portage County tax levy, and last year we had to use fund balance when we did the remodel of the kitchen. We have donations and fees and United Way and other grants that help make up our funding. We have 6 areas or divisions within the agency, actually only 5. One we contract out to the city. We have caregiver support services, nutrition, resource center, senior center, transportation, and volunteer services. So within caregiver support services, we have the Adult Day Center, we have the Alzheimer's Family Caregiver Support Program, the Chore Provider List, the Dementia Care Specialists, the National Family Caregiver Support Program, the Safe and Sound Program, which is for people who wander, and volunteer caregivers. So these are just some pictures over from 2018. We did our first dementia-friendly community event called Reeling in the Memories, where we had a fishing afternoon with folks with dementia, and we had volunteers from Isaac Walton that helped us out with that. This particular group, the Adult Day Center, gets to do all kinds of fun stuff, dressed up for Halloween. So then we get to nutrition program services. So we have 3 different areas within nutrition. We have congregate meals, the senior dining sites, home delivered meals, and liquid nutritional supplements. So what happened to this slide? There we go. So we promote health and prevent malnutrition, we increase social contacts for people who are at home, and we connect community and supportive services. So when you get a meal from the ADRC, it is more than a meal. We have 6 senior dining sites. So we have Lincoln Center and High Rise Manor in Stevens Point. We have a program called My Meal, My Way in Rosholt. So if you go to Sunny and Grisba's Rosholt Cafe, there's actually a small menu, and it's breakfast and lunch items that you can choose from. And then we have Junction City and Plover on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays we're in Amherst at the Jensen Center. So last year, because we started doing our own cooking and introducing locally sourced food, Christy decided to do an Earth Day program and invited the farmers whose food that we were using to the ADRC to talk about the difference that it makes in the program. This is our chef on the square. We are doing our own cooking, and we have actually been trained by a chef on what we should be doing. So this is Justin Johnson, and he is the consultant that GWAR hired for us to work with. And this year we did it without Justin. It was just Jeannie. So the food that we're serving is incredible. Entertainment, lots of things go on in our nutrition program, and people have a ball. We have the Senior Center, activities and classes, evidence-based health programs, so tons of recreational activities. Do you want to play bridge? Do you want to play Mexican train, bunco, pool? We have 2 pool tables in the basement, in case somebody didn't know that. And they're used pretty much every day. We have lots of creative art classes, educational classes, health and fitness activities, Evidence-based health programs, this is probably one of our fastest growing areas where we're able to provide a service for, say, a senior or an adult who has type 2 diabetes and has trouble controlling it. You can go through the Healthy Living with Diabetes class, and these are all evidence-based classes that have great results. Although, let me go back a second. The one program that we have found that has just taken off like gangbusters, and we are in every rural municipality in terms of a village or town in the village in the county, not the townships, is Strong Bodies, which we have partnered with UW Extension on for some of the classes. And we now have that class in Junction City. We have it in Plover. We have it in Stevens Point. We have it in Amherst. And now it's starting in Rosholt. So it's taken a while, but we finally found the program they wanted in the rural communities, and it's Strong Bodies. It's a weightlifting program, and when I say weights, I'm talking 1 pound hand weights up to like 3 pound dumbbells kind of thing. They're not easy, or they're not heavy weights. So this is our Polish class. Cycling Without Age is a program that we worked very hard to bring to Stevens Point, and I have been very active with them. Last year, we spent a great deal of time getting them to be their own 501c3, so they are now independent of us, but it's been a wonderful program. This is one of the events, Veterans Day. We had a flag ceremony at the Lincoln Center dining site with the Law Enforcement Honor Guard. Volunteer services, we have foster grandparents, RSVP, where we do intergenerational programming, and the tax aid as well. Silver Threads and Telecare are in there. Telecare is a great program if you live by yourself and you're worried nobody will notice if you're gone. We have volunteers who call every day just to check on you. We take part in National Service Recognition Day because we are part of the Corporation of National and Community Service. And these are some of our tax aid volunteers. These guys, and I think 2 ladies, do a great job and served quite a few people, and the numbers are actually in the report if you want to look at that. And this is some of the intergenerational programming and our volunteer recognition. Transportation, we now contract out to the city of Stevens Point. Those are the bus rides, the escort drivers, the taxi trips. They now handle the day-to-day coordination of that, but we're still paying for it, so it's still our program. Just a picture of one of the buses taking people to an event. Volunteers love their drivers. The participants love their drivers, their volunteer drivers. So the Resource Center, this is the disability benefit specialist. They help with Social Security applications. They bring in more than $2 million back into the community. The Elder Benefit Specialists, almost $4 million. Information Assistance Specialists, they do the long-term care functional screening for publicly funded long-term care, and they do options counseling. Here's the secret. Our goal is to help keep people off of publicly funded long-term care for as long as possible. So options counseling explores ways for them to pay for care themselves before they need to go on to publicly funded. We have the loan closet. If you've ever had to have surgery and you just need something for a short period of time, like a shower bench or a commode, this is where you come. And we have lots of support groups. So options counseling, long-term care, enrollment counseling, they do some great stuff. Many thanks for your time. I know I went a little long, but actually there is one more thing I just want to take advantage of while I'm up here, and that is to say, we try really hard to hit all of the buttons for seniors, but we have to remember there's 3 distinct generations of seniors right now, and they don't all need or want the same things. You've got the World War II greatest generation, all of whom are, in their late 80s and 90s. You have the silent generation, which is anything but silent. That's the generation that was either born during or was very young during World War II, but that is the generation that gives you Elvis Presley and most of the members of the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. These people were anything but silent. And then you have the boomers, and the boomers are volume, and they still have 10 years left to go in the workforce before they all turn 65. So we would never talk about 20-year-olds and 50-year-olds like they are in the same place in their lives and need the same things. But we do that a lot with seniors. And so we're trying to serve 60 to 90-year-olds and older and balancing what are the needs of all those different generations. So we're always open to suggestions of any ideas from the community of other ways to do that. And I welcome to hear, you to share any ideas you might have with us as well. So thank you.
Is there any questions for Cindy?
No.
With none, thank you. Next up is Jason Hauser, Area Extension Director, Portage County Extension Update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Portage County Board of Supervisors. I went low-tech this year, so last year I got up in front of you with a nice PowerPoint. All the staff were back there, and I thought, you know what, let's keep it low-tech this year. So in your packet, you should have a copy of our annual report. Mine is electronic, so I'm just going to pull it up here in a second. My goal of presenting to you tonight our 2018 annual report is twofold. One, to offer some highlights of extension programming, but then also to kind of acknowledge our transition to UW-Madison. So in the front cover, you'll see our colors have changed from last year. We were blue and white and black, and now we're all cardinal and white. So again, it's I've used this analogy with some people, and it's resonated. You think back to the Super Bowl commercials from the early 90s. You had the Cindy Crawford Diet Pepsi commercial. Remember that? She pushes the button, out comes the Diet Pepsi, and it's, bold new look, same great taste sort of thing was the tagline. And that's how I'm seeing our transition to Madison. It's the same great services, different cover on the package, but again, we teach, we learn, we lead, and we serve, serving the members of Portage County community, and bringing resources of the university to the people where they live, where they work, where they recreate. So going to just touch on some highlights as we go through the pages. As we look at our ag programming, our educator, Ken Strader, a couple of highlights from his programming in 2018. He leveraged over $56,000 in direct cost share funding to implement strategies, agriculture strategies to improve water quality and soil health via no-till planting, cover crops, waterway buffer strips, and those are new dollars from DATCAP that have come into Portage County because of his work with the farmer-led watershed groups. So the farmers of Mill Creek, Farmers for Tomorrow, the Tomorrow River watershed. So he's done some pretty innovative programming there in the ag community. So in your packet, you can see, or in the annual report, you can see all the things that he's been doing. The number of acres, over 3,000 acres, almost 3,500 acres in total here in Portage County through those no-till planting and cover crops, et cetera. So just some highlights there. He's also, you've probably seen him on the news or on YouTube videos with all of the trying to think of the hogweed, giant hogweed, as well as, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the one here.
Wild parsnip.
Wild parsnip. Thank you, Barry. So very influential in this region, also in the state when it comes to those things. As we get into CRD, so our community resources educator, Nathan Sandwick, in 2018, he led strategic planning processes for many organizations, one being the library system here. So those are large initiatives that take a lot of time and energy to to follow an organization through a planning process, and he's done that with many of those. And many have spoken highly of his process, not just the outcomes, but the process that he walks you through, making it very palatable for those that he's working with. He's been involved in the Portage County Business Council, working on economic development and especially energy efficiency and in financial investments in energy efficiencies. With shrinking budgets, we have to look at how can we leverage an investment to pay back down the road. And so energy efficiencies is a huge part of what many community development educators are doing. And he's at the forefront. He actually did the energy study here in Portage County, was it 3-4 years ago, which led to huge cost savings for the county. So as we get into Sherry Daniels and the Family Living Program, we look at financial wellness, Portage County. These are volunteers that are leveraged through our office to do one-on-one counseling with families that may not be able to afford the services or are afraid to seek those services out. So there's 28 individuals that were matched up with coaches conducting nearly 100 sessions. It's sensitive in nature, so quantifying the impact of that is hard to do, because sometimes when we see them and then they don't use our services anymore. But we leverage volunteers. That's what our organization does. So great programming for Sherry. Strong Bodies. Cindy, I think, has exited the room, but that has truly been a strong program for a partnership between ADRC and Extension. So we look at, as you look at our departments and making sure that we're not duplicating services. This is one where we work together in tandem to really touch all the members of the Portage County community in that older echelon. It's been it's something that actually is taking off in our organization as well in other counties. So Portage County has been a huge advantage there. So next up, we have Connie in our 4-H program. So the primary youth program of Extension is 4-H and the community club program. So in 2018, roughly 380 youth members are part of the program, over 100 volunteers. We look at those 100 volunteers and the amount of money that they leverage. If you do the calculations that are in there, it's nearly $250,000 that we leverage through our office for those members to be out there, to those volunteers to work with members for community service, youth leadership development, and actually in 2018 we hosted the statewide 4-H dog show, which may seem like it's just a dog show, but in 4-H that's a huge event. You look at the number of people that came in, it was over 250 participants from 33 counties, so it's almost an economic development driver too. We're bringing people to the county, hotel stays, restaurants, etc. So kind of a mini tourism piece there, just from your investment in 4-H programming. So again, we leverage those youth members to engage them in 21st century skills. So getting out there in community service events, youth leadership, that's all listed there in the report. And then finally, our FoodWise program, just a couple of quick highlights there. It's a 100% federally funded program that comes down through Extension. And so there's no county levy on this. It's kind of, it's twofold. By investing in Extension services, you get 2 educators in the county to focus on nutrition education. It's through the SNAP Ed funds, through the Farm Bill. And so if you look through the numbers, you can see that there was nearly 42 programs that were done with over 400 participants at 9 locations. The benchmark for that, though, is 50% or higher on free and reduced lunch. So there's a targeted audience there. And a benefit and a drawback. The benefit is Portage County's numbers have gone to the plus side, so we're seeing schools that are falling under the 50% free and reduced lunch, so we're not able to program in some schools. So on the backside, we're kind of we're at risk of losing some of our funding that's coming in, which is, it's good for the county, bad for our programming and staff structure there. But the other thing with that is they work on policy systems and environmental change. So looking at the surroundings of Portage County, are there food deserts, as they call them? So places of the county where the grocery store is farther away, and are there barriers to that? So can we get food to those folks that need it the most in a timely fashion? So that's kind of the quick highlights I wanted to cover today, and thank you for your time in support of Extension here in Portage County. My area, so I serve Marathon, Portage, Clark, and Wood County, so I'm here every week, but kind of a stranger in the night to some of you, and I appreciate the time in front of you to kind of just do some highlights of our programming here in Portage County. And if it's okay, I'll entertain any questions. That's right.
Supervisor Bob Gifford.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, other than the ag agent, Ken Schrader, person I see the most around town is Nate Sandwick. I mean, I was in the Portage County Prosperity 2040 project, and then before that, the Community Change Project. And he's always there. And the thing I always appreciate is that no matter what weird outside the box thinking kind of research I might mention to him, oh yeah, I heard of that, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody else in the room might have heard of. He's already been on the case, so it's just a tremendous resource to have these folks in the community working on community development.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gifford. Yeah, I appreciate that, and I will take that back to Nathan and with your kind thoughts. And yeah, so we strive to be out there and bring, things that people haven't heard of. Our goal is to be on the forefront of that, and so I'm glad that that's actually being executed here in Portage County. So, thank you.
Any other questions? With that, thank you, Mr. Hauser.
Thank you.
Resolutions and ordinances. Number 1, authorizing a 2019 budget adjustment for Portage County UW Extension, Agricultural Education and Programming.
Resolution 152, 2018-2020, submitted by Ag and Extension and Finance Committees. Budget adjustment resolution authorizes funding for UW Extension Ag Extension Programming and requires a 2/3 supermajority vote of the board.
Motion by Supervisor O'Brien, seconded by Supervisor Barry Jakowski. Discussion. All those in favor, press yes, and opposed, no.
Nailed it.
(24 ayes, 1 excused). Resolution adopted.
Number 2, support of Central Sands Groundwaters County Collaborative.
Resolution 153, 2018-2020, submitted by Planning and Zoning, Land and Water Conservation, and Health and Human Services Board, supporting Central Sands Groundwater County Collaborative and requests state funding to carry out strategies to address groundwater issues.
Moved by Supervisor Bob Gifford, seconded by Supervisor Barry Jakowski. Discussion. All those in favor, press yes, and opposed, no.
(24 ayes, 1 excused). Resolution adopted.
Number 3, authorization to enter into a contract with Energy Services, Inc. for administration of the Wisconsin Home Energy Assistance Program.
Resolution 154, 2018-2020, submitted by Health and Human Services Board, authorizing the 1-year contract with Energy Services, Inc.
Motion by Supervisor Dubek, seconded by Supervisor Zastro. Supervisor Dubek.
I'd like to make a technical amendment to this. On the signature page, it should say August 29th, 2019, not the 27th. And on the contract summary form, at number 7, the amount of contract, it should be 121,233.
We need a motion for that change. I'll take a motion by Supervisor Moresi, seconded by Supervisor Gussel. All those in favor with the technical changes? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment change is passed. Now we're back to the original as amended. Any other discussion? All those in favor vote yes, and opposed no.
(24 ayes, 1 excused). Amended resolution adopted.
Number 4, forming an ad hoc complete count committee.
Resolution 155, 2018-2020, submitted by Executive Operations Committee, forming an ad hoc complete count committee for 2020 census efforts.
Motion by Supervisor Johnson, seconded by Supervisor Pataki. Discussion. Supervisor Moore.
I just wanted to say a couple words. I'm actually very excited about this. I think in this county board in the past year and a half that I've been on this board, we do so much discussion about, oh, the state doesn't give us this and this, and actually having a complete count for the U.S. Census is what we, as county board supervisors, can do directly to impact some of the things that we actually complain about in these county board meetings.
I look forward to that. We've had some discussion with Supervisor Johnson about the forming of this committee, and we've kept it so that it's fluid, so that we can be easily adapted to it, because this is all kind of new. So I think we'll move forward in the near future here. Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just following up on that, I don't think a lot of people realize that one of the largest groups of undercounted people in a community are children. So, and a lot of our school lunch funding is done according to the census. So it's not just, making sure we count certain groups. It's making sure we count all people, our rural community, our urban community, or marginalized communities, children, old people, everybody. This is a critical time, so we're looking for great cooperation throughout the community.
As we go forward and we bring out and continue to bring out information and things from this, I would ask that all the supervisors, any opportunity or chances that they get to speak about it, educate others as well, because so much of our funding and grants and aids and stuff are tied to this. So it's important that everybody, especially as our elected voices here, help to educate the public as well. So
one more thing.
Supervisor Johnson.
Sorry, one more thing. And a lot of you who filled out census forms before are expecting probably a nice little envelope in the mail, and you'd fill out the form. It won't go that way this time around. You're going to be receiving a card first, and then expected to do some follow-up online. If you don't do the follow-up online, you may be contacted. Ultimately, there may be an opportunity for a paper form, but there is an expectation that the bulk of those who respond to the census will be online, which is something to share with all of your constituents, particularly in our rural areas where internet access may be somewhat of a challenge.
So everybody stay tuned. Thank you.
We have a motion, we just need a...
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor vote yes, and opposed no.
Twenty-four ayes, 1 excused, resolution adopted.
Number 5, approving and authorizing Portage County Solid Waste to execute a agreement with Advanced Disposal Midwest Service LLC to operate the Portage County Material Recovery Facility for the year 2020.
Resolution 156, 2018-2020, submitted by Solid Waste Management Board approving a 1-year contract with Advanced Disposal Midwest Services.
Motion by Supervisor Moresi, seconded by Supervisor Zastro. Discussion. Supervisor James Gifford.
Is there a reason why we only went for 1 year?
Amanda's in the back.
Yep.
Approach the bench.
So we were given 3 options by Advanced Disposal, and one of the options was the 1 year. And the 1-year contract was the one financially best for us, and so that's why we opted for the 1 year. They did submit a 3 and a 10-year, but we could not afford those options. So we're sticking with the 1 year, and we're going to do an RFP again for next year.
Supervisors Droik.
How many bidders?
We only had 1 bidder with 3 options.
1 bidder. 3 options.
Supervisor Matt Jakowski.
Mr. Chair, can somebody refresh my memory? What was spent on consultant fees to do that contract, that first RFP?
So we had budgeted, the Solid Waste Board gave permission to spend $8,000, and I only ended up spending about $3,000. And the good thing about the RFP and their consultant work is that we can use that and just tweak it a little bit for next year.
That was my next question. Thank you.
1 bidder. Any other questions?
That hurts.
Thank you. With that, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? You have a... Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any, all in favor, vote yes, and opposed, no.
23 ayes, 1 abstained, 1 excused. Resolution adopted.
Number 6, ratification of the collective bargaining agreement between Portage County and the Portage County Highway Employees Local 311 AFSCME AFL-CIO for the period of January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019.
Resolution 157, 2018-2020, submitted by Human Resources Committee approving a 1-year collective bargaining agreement with Highway Employees Local 311.
Motion by Supervisor Laddick, seconded by Supervisor Machakowski. Discussion. All those in favor with yes and opposed no.
Twenty-four ayes, 1 excused. Resolution adopted.
Number 7, authorizing a 2019 budget adjustment for sick leave conversion payouts.
Resolution 158, 2018-2020, submitted by Human Resources and Finance Committees. Budget adjustment resolution authorizing funds for sick leave conversion and requires a 2/3 supermajority vote.
Motion by Supervisor Rakowski, seconded by Supervisor Moresi. Discussion. All those in favor, push yes, and oppose no.
Twenty-four ayes, 1 excused. Resolution adopted.
Number 8, authorization of a 12-hour per week social worker position for the in-homes safety service at the Health and Human Service Department.
Resolution 159, 2018-2020, submitted by Health and Human Services Board and Human Resources Committee, authorizing additional hours for HHS social worker.
Motion by Supervisor Dodge, seconded by Supervisor Zastro. Discussion. Supervisor, why am I drawing? Neville.
Mr. Chair, the third bullet point under about halfway down, right at the end, it says if attending another approved meeting, the other committee member per diem will apply. And when I was reading this, I couldn't find the other committee member per diem. I think that O needs to be a small letter O.
You're on the wrong one.
Whoops.
Does that answer your question? Does that answer your question, Supervisor Neville?
That answers the question.
Okay.
We'll come back to that.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else have any discussion? All those in favor, press yes, and oppose no.
Come on. Harry, don't look this way.
I'll get this.
24 ayes, 1 excused. Resolution adopted.
Number 9, elected officials' compensation for April 2020 through April 2022 terms for County Board Supervisors.
Resolution 160, 2018-2020, submitted by Human Resources Committee, setting the compensation for the next term for County Board Supervisors.
Motion by Supervisor Bob Gifford, seconded by Supervisor Zastro. Discussion. Supervisor Neville.
The comment I made a couple of minutes ago.
Applies to this one. Can you repeat it?
Yes, the third bullet point where it says in the last line, other committee member per diem. When I read it, I couldn't find an other committee member. So I think that O should be a little letter O. There doesn't seem to be any category called other committee member. It's just committee member.
She's talking down here.
That relates to citizens.
She's saying it's not a proper noun, so therefore it should just be lowercase, which is correct.
Did you want to offer it? So are you looking to offer a technical amendment to change the capital O to a small o?
Sure.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Supervisor Johnson. Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment with aye? Aye. Opposed? The amendment Did I have a no?
Yes.
Okay. Supervisor Matt Jakowski is no. Nay. Back to the original as amended.
Excuse me?
Supervisor Johnson.
Excuse me? I had a question as well.
Oh, I recognize Supervisor Johnson. You're next, sir.
Okay. You okay?
Oh, yes, ladies first.
I think I've said this before. You don't know that for sure.
I do.
There you go.
Anyway,
Point of order.
thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Jakowski. I've said this before, and I'm just mentioning again, I will be voting against this, not because I don't believe my peers are hardworking and deserve the pay that they receive. I think it's just a prudent thing to hold back and not ask for more money for the elected officials. So,
Supervisor Barry Jakowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see that Supervisor Moresi voted nay. I would ask if he would mind explaining why.
Supervisor Moresi.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Supervisor Jakowski. I too also believe, just like Supervisor Johnson, that in lean times like this, we probably shouldn't be increasing our pay as electeds. I do value everybody's opinion here, and I believe that they are worth it, but I'm not quite willing to increase my own pay when other people in our community are in financial hardship. So I will be voting no against this. I also was in discussions with the Executive Operations Committee about figuring out some kind of salary schedule for supervisor pay that would be a little bit more fairly compensated and kind of rule out any potential misuse of per diems that may or not be happening with certain committees and committee chairs. So what I would really like to see is I'd like to make the formal request that the executive office asks staff to kind of throw out some scenarios for possible salary schedules for supervisors and include the mileage in that as well, so people are fairly compensated. I realize this is a day late and a dollar short, and we won't see the value in this for another 2 to 3 years, but it would be something I think we would be wise to do, so we're actually being prudent with taxpayer dollars, because I feel like now there's a little bit of pork barrel spending and a lot of waste with some of these green sheets that keep coming out and showing up with some of my colleagues here. So I'd love to see that taken care of and nipped in the bud. I know we tried to do that in the past. Executive Ops did a hard look at it, but there's still a couple little areas where there's some loopholes that people squeeze on through and take a little bit, maybe take more than they probably should.
Supervisor Barry Jakowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It seems to me that Supervisor Moresi is making some accusations that he feels that somebody is taking advantage of a policy that has been set. I would like him to explain that and to talk about who he's talking about.
I think Mr. Moresi is just expressing his opinion. I'd rather not get into a back and forth on the floor. Supervisor Robbie.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to know who he has concerns with, but I thought there's a process in place where we vote on the green sheets for committee meetings and additional meetings, and if people feel it's not appropriate, they should be voting no, and I'm not sure how many of those green sheets have been voted down at all since the process has started. So either we're using the process appropriately or we're not, but there is a process in place because people are concerned to make sure that it's a credible meeting that's being attended, and if people haven't voted no on that, then I guess to me, we already have something in place.
I would speak on behalf of the Executive Operations Committee that we have had some that have been turned down, and then we have had some that we've questioned. So there is the transparency in place with the green sheets. We also now have them published ahead of time, whereas before the only ones that really seen them were the people in the committee. But now, as part of our agenda items, they're out there for everybody to see. Is something of the transparency, and the Supervisor Johnson was the one that brought that to our attention. And I think we all agree that that's it's a good process, and it's one of the changes that we put in place to make sure that we had some transparency. And we have had discussion on a lot of them at executive ops, and there have been a few that have been thrown back. So is the procedures perfect? Probably not, and I don't know how. There's so many loopholes, and there's so many things. We've got a lot bigger things to take care of, folks. Supervisor Honnold.
I know that in this full room of 24 other supervisors, I am not the only hearing impaired person in this room. I just missed out on most of what was discussed because supervisors are not using their microphone. And I would really appreciate a reminder throughout meetings that people use microphones for those of us who want to be involved in the conversation but cannot because of a disability. Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder. I will try and work harder for that too, Joan. Supervisor James Gifford.
I just wanted to make Vinny feel better, regardless of how he votes. You're not voting for or against your own salary. You're voting for or against the person who represents your district. If you were voting for or against your own salary, it'd be against state law.
I understand.
Okay.
Supervisor Dodge.
I guess I was a little surprised at the 1% increase for supervisors. I've been on this board for a considerable amount of time. We've never done it in that kind of increment, I guess. We stayed the same for several years, and as I remember, we just got a raise. And so I think this is more of a bookkeeping issue than it should be. And, you know, I personally think we ought to stay at the per diem that we receive this year for the next term.
Supervisor Bob Gifford.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little perspective about this 1% business. I always drive out to Clark County for the Woodland Enhanced Health Services meetings because I like to be there in person and, you know, face-to-face with people. And on the way back, both my wheel axles seem to have decided to crap out at the same time, so I end up with a $300 bill over at Checks. And I don't think that the per diem there was exactly excessive for going out there. But also, I try to be the advocate for low-income people in government. And I advocate for a 100% increase in the minimum wage. So 1% doesn't seem like a drastic increase to me.
Supervisor Machikowski.
Mr. Chair, just to answer Supervisor Dodge's questions here and why the 1%. We gave all our employees basically a 1% cost of living increase plus their step. We figured the discussions at the HR committee figured a 1% was a pretty good increase. A lot of the supervisors that sat on the committee, a majority. And the reason we do this is because it was stagnant for a lot of years, and we all of a sudden had a big jump. If we keep it in incremental jumps like this, small incremental jumps, then all of a sudden we're not voting for a $10 raise or a $5 raise down the line. It stays with the cost of living and is reasonable.
Supervisor Barry Jakowski.
I would just like to personally apologize to Supervisor Honnold and probably for the rest of us who forget to use our mics. And there are other hearing impaired, and I am sorry. We will try to do better.
Yep. Supervisor Zastro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Supervisor Jakowski saying that, you know, in the past for 20 years, there was no increase in the costs or the wages that supervisors received, which tells me that 20 years ago they were getting too much money because it's stayed that way for so long. And then we voted to start increasing it in small increments, like it was said. And I just quickly did the math that if a supervisor, say, made $5,000 over the course of a year, now it's probably including mileage, at 10 hours a week of putting into researching and studying and preparing for committees and this meeting, works out to be about $9.61 an hour. So I don't think it's out of line at all. Thank you.
Supervisor Moa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say I am one to not want to vote to give elected officials a raise, but I also think about many of the folks who choose not to run for office because they cannot afford to be in office due to many other reasons. And I think about how increasing wage for elected officials can then encourage and encourage those who may not typically run for office or those from marginalized communities and other women to run for office because now there's another means to kind of help take care of things that other barriers for them.
Thank you. Supervisor Medine.
Just a procedure question. What is the rationale for carrying this out to the 100th of a penny?
Jenny, is it just or Laura? It was numbers, so I thought Jenny'd have it.
That's how the Munis payroll system does it. So we wanted to make sure that what somebody sees here matches what shows up on the paycheck, so there's no discrepancy.
Any other discussion or questions?
That's probably enough.
I've got one comment, though, too. I wanted to wait for everyone else, but it's like, I've heard a lot of the comments, and one of the things is that we don't use this salary as a living. The people that work for us use their salaries as a living, and they get the 1%, 2% raises, and that's because they're making a living from doing it. We're public servants to some point, and Supervisor Dodge, I think, is right. Wasn't that long ago, we got a bump, and I think it was $5. So, and the next resolution that's going to come up is one we're probably going to talk about too. But I agree. I think that we should be sticking with where we are, and so. Hey, with that, does anybody else have any other discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor with the resolution, vote yes, and oppose no.
Be interesting. Come on, confirm, vote blocked.
$14 ayes, 9 nays, 1 abstained, 1 excused. Amended resolution adopted.
Number 10, elected officials' compensation for 2020 and April 2022 term for County Board Chair.
Resolution 161, 2018-2020, submitted by the Human Resources Committee, setting the compensation for the next term for the County Board Chair.
Motion by Supervisor Rakowski, seconded by Supervisor Pataki. Discussion. I just want to speak to this one, and it's because it's my position now, but I don't know what it's going to be in 2020 or 2022. I was one of the people that was at the meetings before and said that this position was, when Supervisor Eidsvog and Chair Eidsvog was here, was froze for 9 years. And this position and what it's evolved to, I spend a lot of time in Jenny's office with Dave, if I'm not here, with Shirley and Executive Holman. Mindy has flagged a lot of my calls or helped me with a lot of stuff. If I'm not here, doesn't mean I'm not necessarily working or the chair's not working, but the involvement and what this is created over the years dramatically changes, and I think it needs to be a slight increase, or it's like some of these other positions where they get these big swings. You need to have a small cost of living on this one because of the fact that you need to have enough in there that it's worth somebody's time to take all the phone calls and all the other things, and there's a lot of things that you get to deal with in this position too that someone else may not say that $24,000, it's not worth it. So if there's any other discussion, all those in favor with this resolution, vote yes, and opposed, no.
Firm. Oh, please. Thank you.
19 ayes, 5 nays, 1 excused. Resolution adopted.
I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Supervisor Barry Jakowski, seconded by Supervisor Moressi. All in favor, with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.